We're live.
Live? Okay. All right. So I want to welcome everybody to the Lake Bluff School District 65 Board of Education regular meeting for February 23rd, 2021. Our board members and members of the district administrative team are participating in a hybrid meeting as there is currently a requirement on group size in an effort to limit the spread of COVID-19. As a public body, the Lake Bluff Board of Education is subject to the Illinois Open Meeting Act. Prior to this meeting, a public announcement was posted on our website announcing various participation options, including asking questions ahead of the meeting using a Google form. We will also allow the opportunity for participants watching this meeting on Zoom to use the raise your hand feature and comment during public comment, which I will elaborate on a little bit later. While the requirements of the Open Meeting Act have been relaxed during the global pandemic, the members of the Board of Education take their responsibilities as board members who are responsible to the public no less seriously. Leanne, could you please call the roll?
John Morrison. John Morrison.
Present.
Leanne Charlo, present. Julie Gottschall.
Present.
Richard Haag. Not here, sorry. Andy Duran.
Present.
Ann Hill.
Present.
Mark Berry.
Present. All right, we've got 6 out of 7, so we will begin. I would ask that we all stand if you can and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We will begin the meeting, as we always do, with the opportunity for public comment. I will point out that we will have public comment at the end of the meeting, and because we're going to be talking about a subject that is of a lot of interest to parents who might be watching, I will allow public comment after Dr. Leali's return to learn update. So if anybody wants to, thinks it's more appropriate to hold their comment till after that, please do. But if anybody would like to comment now, we can, first of all, see if there's any written comment to be read. Shelley, is there any written comment to be read?
Not at this time.
Not at this time. And if there's anybody who would like to raise their hand and make a comment now, I see one hand with Elaine Bennett. We can allow you to make your comment, and anybody else who raises their hand. Otherwise, you can wait and make comment later on in the meeting. There'll be 2 other opportunities. So, Shelley, if you can allow Elaine Bennett in, she can make her. Do we get video or is it just audio?
Do you have, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you see me?
No, can't see.
No, okay.
We can hear you.
Okay, let me see if no. All right. I'll just go ahead with my comment.
Address.
Thank you. I emailed everyone. I'm reading the email that I sent the
Elaine,
board.
if you could state your name and your address first, that'd be great. I forgot to say.
Yes, hi, Lane Bennett, 204 East Witchwood, Lake Bluff. And I'm going to read the email that I sent to the board and Dr. Leali earlier this morning. Thank you. Dear Dr. Leali and District 65 board members, as I listened to the January 26th school board meeting, it was again evident how District 65, its board members and administrators have put great care into their planning and recommendations during this challenging time. My gratitude to the school board runs deep, as its members have graciously volunteered tremendous time, thought, and insight. New encouraging information from the board meeting is the anticipation that District 65 teachers and staff will have received both COVID vaccination doses sometime in March. With vaccinated teachers and ever increasing evidence that school settings are not major transmission drivers when mitigation efforts are followed, now is the time for our children to have an option to attend school every day for a full school day with live teaching. The current e-learning platform for in-person students for 5 hours a day is an unsatisfactory compromise for live teaching as the pandemic statistics continue to decline. It is therefore especially critical to stop squandering our chances to have children attend school every day for a full school day with live teaching. Our students are suffering from a loss of enthusiasm for school and learning, continued isolation, and increased dependence on screens. It is clear that prolonged time on computer screens can lead to a myriad of negative consequences for children that include fatigue, depression, vision problems, obesity, lack of motivation, among others. I've linked an article that describes these here for your review. So I have 3 questions for the District 65 School Board. Number 1, isn't it time for the students to close their computers and let the teacher in the room start teaching again? Number 2, is the number 1 priority of District 65 to return to full-time, in-school, live teaching as soon as possible? And number 3, if so, is there a plan to implement the above questions as soon as possible? Apparently, the biggest issue preventing the above requests is a lack of physical space necessary to maintain the 6-foot guidance. I'm sure you're all familiar with the new CDC guidelines that came out earlier this month, saying 6 feet is a guidance, not a requirement. Has District 65 determined how many students could be in school while maintaining a 6-foot distance between students? If it is less than 6 feet, then what actually is the distance? Is it 5.5 feet? How close are we to reaching the 6-foot guidance? Because surely if it was 5 feet, 11 inches, we would accept it. Also, it is very likely that some families will opt to remain at home, which would make the space requirement lower. It is crucial we have this data in order to determine how close we can get to this 6-foot guidance. Some may argue that in-school live teaching is too risky and puts teachers and students at risk. The current mitigation plan at District 65 has been extremely successful in preventing a COVID outbreak at both schools. In fact, they are likely the safest buildings in all of Lake Bluff. It is therefore especially critical to stop squandering our chances to get our children back in school every day for a full day with live teaching. District 65 mottos is excellent in education, enthusiasm for life, every student, every day. I'm asking the board members of District 65 to answer the above questions as soon as possible. Respectfully, Lane Bennett.
Thank you. We appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
I don't see any other hands raised. So we are going to move on to our agenda, the rest of our agenda, and we are going to try to keep it moving. Got a lot to cover. Our first item was to have John Noble from District 115 talk to us about some legislative advocacy work, but he's not. Is he not on board yet, guys? I did text him, and I haven't heard back.
I don't, yeah.
Calling, he's on the phone.
Oh.
So,
He's on the phone, Mark.
Okay. Well, do we want to do what?
I'm letting him into the board meeting now.
Okay.
Okay, he should be, he's in now.
John, can you hear us?
I think he has to unmute. John, if you can hear us, if you can unmute your phone.
Hello?
Hey,
There we go. Hello?
hey, John, we can hear you.
Sorry. Yeah, thank you.
So tonight, this everybody, this is John Noble. He's a board member on District 115 and the high school, and he is part of a group of people on the board that have been working on some legislative advocacy issues that they have asked us to support and partner on, and it seemed like a really great opportunity to do more work with 115 and 67, because we always felt that has been important to increase our visibility in those buildings, in those districts, and they're all good causes. And so we've asked John to come tonight to talk us through the key features of the work they're doing. And then at the next meeting, there'll be if we decide that this is an appropriate partnership for us, at the next meeting, we will vote on a resolution to support it and create a committee, or we may not call it a committee, but something to that effect, with members from 115 and 67, along with members from our board who will meet on some regular basis to work through these issues. So, John, I'm going to turn it over to you to give us the highlights.
Great. Yeah. So thank you so much for the opportunity. I really appreciate being able to address all of you. Thank you for your continued service to your community and the school board as well. I joined the school board for the high school last April, or two years now, coming up in April. And one of the things I was charged with was looking at working with the EdRed organization, which is an advocacy group for school boards. And they serve about 80 school boards, mainly in the north and western suburbs. And in working on those items and legislative ideas, as well as being representative for ISB, IASB, for our voting around our initiatives supporting or not supporting the IASB legislative yearly issues. And so one of the things that had come up was really us declaring really a set of positions that we could share with the community, that what we represent, what we stand for, what we're actually asking our legislators, our House representative and our senator, what we need them to do and we want them to do on our behalf. And so that came about and basically landed us with, in about, I would say, September, a set of draft ideas and concepts around different causes and things that are struggling and issues for our school district, and actually many. I've served on the ad hoc committees, legislative ad hoc committee, mandate ad hoc committee, financial ad hoc committee, and a couple others within the EdRed organization, and also discussions with IASB on their pushing on those issues as well. And what came about was really kind of a foundational idea about how do we remove and bring back more control to the local schools and school districts. So how do we remove the state's guidelines and the state's mandates upon us and give us a little bit more local control? And so that's really the foundation of kind of the two-page document you'd see in one of the attachments. And then any other issues and ideas that have come up, I just try to bring those forward as the admin brings to us, and then try to help push those along in conversations with our board attorney, our state and representative, and our senator, House State Senator Julie Morrison, and then House Representative is Bob Morgan. So that's mainly what I've been doing. And so we put together a formal piece of our priorities in December, and we passed a resolution to support those as a board. And then we brought the same discussion to the District 67, and I brought the same discussion to you all, Mark Berry first, around basically getting support of those general policies and ideas. And so they really are grounded in the main couple things that you guys and we all fight with, which are effectively unfunded mandates from the state. And to give just a smidge of background, the state passes basically a lot of laws and mandates, and they attach the concept or the idea that there's no financial cost to it because it doesn't cost the state anything. What it costs is it costs all of us individually at our districts and regionally for us to implement, report, and keep track of all of these different mandates. Some of them come in the form of your teachers mandatory trainings every year at the beginning of the year, such as bloodborne pathogen, concussion training for every single teacher every single year. So some of these make a lot of sense and some of these make no sense at all. And so that type of time that's eaten by every single teacher for all of these mandated trainings takes away from professional development time. There's other types of reporting mandates that we're adhering to and you have to adhere to. And so part of the discussion was really to remove those mandates from a perspective where the districts themselves could apply for 1, 3, 5-year exemptions if you're a district in good standing. Also get the teachers union and other people on board to basically limiting and reorganizing mandates from the educational professional development to free up that time for the local school districts, and also put the senators in the state into a similar structure that we do as a board. So we review policies every 5 years. Part of the idea was to bring forward that all mandates need to be reviewed every 5 years and either sunset or reaffirmed by the legislative. So those are some ideas that we've tried to put forward. And we currently have Senator Villavalom that's looking to put a mandate bill forward. It was going to go last year, but COVID hit. So it is in work right now. And we're hoping to see the draft of this after March 1st. And then there's a couple other pieces of legislative ideas that we've worked forward, or I've been working forward. And one of them, which touches on us a little bit from the district, as well as I think it's touched on you, is a policy that comes from a law from Michigan, which is a little bit more of a ownership of prior districts of certain employees that may have been resigned or fired, but giving visibility and transparency for that person into their next job or to other jobs within the education. So if someone has done things wrong and not properly acted in the way they should, basically having that visibility so that you can get it into their personal file and share that information. And so there's some particulars to it, but that is something also we've been pushing forward. And we have some initial support from ISB, and we have some initial support from the teachers union, and we're waiting to see how that law or elements of that bill, I should say, could be incorporated within the broad ISB's educational bill coming up. And again, we're waiting to see how that draft looks March 1st as well. So that's kind of the stuff I've been doing. And really from my request to the boards has been just allowing ourselves to work together, understand the priorities that we have, and essentially become a little stronger as we would become together in these ideas and initiatives. And for the life of me going through this, I can't think of an instance where there would be something that you all would want to support and bring forward that frankly wouldn't be important to District 67 or District 115. And even if it wasn't majorly important, I can't, again, for the life of me, think of why we would not be on the same page in trying to support that cause or help that to give you greater local control of what you're doing from a school district perspective. So that's the work I've been doing, and that's kind of the cause and the purpose behind it. And just thought it'd be a really good idea that we start to work together in a little bit more cohesive way. And to me, this is a view really of kind of longer term strategic planning and driving to where our goals and future and direction should be.
Anybody have any questions? Well, before I ask for questions, I would put a little piece of context out there. Some of you may remember a running list that our former soup, Dr. Sophie, used to maintain, and I think she got it from somewhere else. It was something like all the unfunded mandates that we've been forced on us in the past, I don't know what it is, maybe 10 years or something like that.
Yeah, there's a long list.
And the list is huge. It's probably cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. I'll also point out that we are voting tonight on another unfunded mandate, which is that TRS supplemental savings plan. You know, it doesn't seem like it's a big deal, but it's going to cost us money to administrate. These are constantly getting hit by things like this. Another point I would make on the piece of legislation that John worked on developing, and he put it very carefully, but as a person with less deft in their language skills, I would just make it clear that is better known as pass the trash legislation, to make it clear to what that really is. That's keeping the bad guys from, helping us keep the bad guys from just being pushed along. And we all know something about that in some of the legal issues we've faced over the past few years. So I think it's a worthy cause. I think it benefits all the districts. And so with that, I would just say, if you have any questions for John about the kinds of things he's talking about, but we're looking at perhaps passing a resolution next meeting to support this work and become a working team with them and forming a committee or a partnership of some kind. Any questions for John?
Great idea.
Yeah, no questions, but I appreciate all your hard work on it. It's good.
John, I think you're good. Thank you so much for coming. We appreciate it. We got your resolution idea, and we will follow up with that as soon as we get that passed.
My pleasure, and thank you for your time, and appreciate you letting me go first. I know how long these meetings get to go, so I appreciate not having to sit around, but enjoy the rest of your meeting, and anything I can do, I'm happy to talk to any of you about it, as well as any of the community members, and again, be a part of helping get things a little bit better in the future. So all the best.
Thanks, John. Have a nice night.
You too. Bye-bye.
Okay, we're going to move on to our reports. And to be quite honest with you, I am not sure who is able to give a report tonight. So Dr. Leali, maybe you have a better handle on who's doing reports tonight?
Yes, Erin Mulford is here from the Alliance to provide a report.
Okay.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, how you doing? So I'm Aaron Mulford. I am the president of the Alliance. This is my second year president. So I apologize. I typically would come and give a earlier in the year, but obviously it's been a unique year. And for us, even more so, I think many of you heard, I think like in the summertime, we received a notice that our 501c3 status had been suspended due to a clerical error. That was very unfortunate. Unfortunately, you know, we're a group made up of volunteers, and none of us are professional accountants. So it was a mistake on our part. We were able to correct it. It did take, thanks to the COVID shutdown, it took us probably the better part of about 12 months to get that rectified. But in late November, early December, we received word from the IRS that everything was rectified. Our status was
We lost you, Aaron.
Yeah. Erin, can you still hear us?
We are experiencing technical difficulties.
Oh, he's typing saying he can hear us.
Yeah, the chat says he can hear us.
hear me now?
We can hear you. Do we want to move on to another report, and Aaron can try to call back on a different line or a different source, or?
Sure, we can do that. Nate, do you want to provide the report from middle school?
Sure, just only that we continue to work really hard, and we've got a lot of kids who are there and happy every day, abiding by all of the continued restrictions that we have in place and mitigating efforts that we have in place. I've had the opportunity, particularly this week, to spend some time in classrooms. Staffing continues to be a challenge for us, but we've been able to adjust and adapt and keep all of our in-person spaces operational. And we've also begun some of the efforts for our remote and modified musical. Those are well underway, so I'm excited about that. And I suspect that as we go through the reports today, if you have anything specific for me to clarify or add, I'll be here, of course, to do that. So I'll just kind of step back at this point and turn things over to Kelly.
Are we doing a remote musical? Did I hear you say?
So the high school musical, we're going to be performing it online, and it'll be pre-recorded, but it'll be an opportunity for our students and their families to see a performance in a very different format, but we're excited about it. There's going to be a lot of off-site recording and some green screening going on, and so we're getting pretty creative with it, and I want to thank the Fine Arts Department for the work they're engaged in.
Cool. Thanks for being so creative.
All right, I do have a report. In fact, this is the month that LBES gets to highlight students and some of the happenings in our building. So I've got 3 teachers that are joining me first. I just want to share a couple things and then I'll pass it over to them. So I just want to start by saying that pausing to celebrate and being kind are more important than ever right now. And so as I thought about these ideas, they led me to no other option this month than to feature something new that happened in February at LBES. I'm going to leave the project to description up to a couple of students. I think they'll be better at articulating the thoughts behind it and how things went than I will. But I do want to say just a few words before I hand it over. I'm proud and excited this evening to have our LBES Student Council facilitators and some student representatives alongside me on our Zoom. Student Council is a way to promote leadership, create community, and give students a voice. And this year, even though they knew it would be different, our 3 staff members expressed the desire and necessity for Student Council to continue for the 2021 school year. I'm joined this evening by Mary Strauss, Jackie Tivador, and Jill Weinberger, along with 2 innovative, curious, kind, and thoughtful 5th graders. This project brought happiness to my home, and I hope that it brought happiness to many others throughout the community. At this time, I would like to pass things over to Mrs. Strauss, Ms. Tivador, and Ms. Weinberger to introduce our students to talk about a student council project that I hope becomes a new tradition.
So just to add on to what Mrs. Bay was saying, a little background about our LBES Student Council. Each class, 3rd grade through 5th grade, selects a representative for their class to attend monthly student council meetings.
Jill, we need you to unmute.
Jill, unmute.
I know, I had it there ready to go. Sorry. Then student council decides and plans activities and fundraisers for the school to participate in throughout the school year.
And tonight we would love to showcase an exciting way that LBES Student Council is bringing together our whole school community. So I would like to introduce Blake and Adi.
Hello, my name is Blake Spezzano.
Hi, I'm Audie Boyle.
And we are 5th grade student council representatives.
Every year, LBS Student Council brainstorms ideas about how we can help others in our community. We come up with lots of ideas and then decide which one we want to move forward with.
This year, one of the ideas that we came up with was called the Kindness Bingo Board. The Kindness Bingo Board is a bingo board with multiple good deeds that students can do to help out around their communities.
This is what the bingo board looks like. Student council members brainstormed ideas on the board and picked out favorites until we narrowed it down to fit the board.
My personal favorite activities are order takeout from a Lake Bluff restaurant, FaceTime a friend or family member, and make a thank you card for teachers.
My favorite activities were recycle 5 items, make a craft for someone, and watch a movie with my family.
To complete the bingo board, students aim to complete 5 of the activities in a row. If they completed 5 in a row, they could also aim to complete the entire board. The bingo board was due on Friday, February 19th.
Over half of the students at LBS completed a bingo board. Classes who had full participation were given a reward from their teacher. The classes who had full participation were Miss Hayden's 2nd grade class, Miss Kelly's 2nd grade class, and Miss Weinberger's 4th grade class.
We thought that this would be a fun activity to get kids more involved with their communities, and I think it was a huge success.
Does the board have any questions for Blake and Addie?
That sounds great. Nobody's favorite activity was shoveling snow, huh? Lots of opportunity for that.
I think this was a really, really great idea. Well done, guys.
Thank you.
Nice job on the project and great presentation. Thanks for coming tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks so much to all of you.
Great job.
Thank you.
So I guess we're going to bring our Alliance representative back, Aaron.
Okay. Aaron, can you hear us?
Hey, there he is.
Yep, here I am. Okay, cool. Sorry about that. Okay, great. I don't know exactly where I dropped off, but just to kind of quickly summarize, we rectified all of our issues with the IRS. It was kind of regrettable. Like I said, we're made up of volunteers and we don't have a professional accountant on the team. So, we were able to rectify it all. We were approved, or sorry, we were reenacted retroactively. So any donations made to the Alliance are all, still tax deductible and everything. And so we're now back into the groove of things. And so we've been spending the last about 6 weeks or so kind of coordinating our annual fundraising letter writing campaign. So that's in process now. So you'll expect to see that soon. And I know that our teacher liaison is going to be reaching out, if he hasn't already, to just kind of lay the groundwork or kind of check with teachers and see if any of the teachers have grant ideas that maybe we could get going end of the school year, or at least have it prepped and ready to go, so that when the school year kicks off, that they'd be ready to kind of begin to work with those. So that's pretty much all of our activity. I know we did make a couple donations. One was for math kits a little bit earlier this year. And Tracy, I see you're here. We had pledged $2,500 to help with the Park District, help funding some of the Park District remote learning. We found out at the last meeting we might have had wires crossed, and I don't know if you've received that yet, the funds for that.
We haven't, but Jay and I were in communication about that in order to get you some more information. And so we can definitely talk offline and figure out how to take care of that.
Sure. I just wanted to check up on that. So I'll be in touch with you tomorrow and we'll get that taken care of right away.
Thank you so much. We greatly appreciate it.
Oh yeah, it's our pleasure, of course. So, so that's pretty much it. Just kind of wanted to check in, let you guys know we are still here. And we've been trying to figure out ways that we can help, but obviously, it's been a challenging year. So that's it.
Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you so much, Aaron. We
Thank you.
appreciate your support.
You bet. Thank you.
I don't believe, Jay, do you have anything you do?
Yeah,
Okay.
I do. I just wanted to give you a brief update on contracts for next year. We are bringing the renewal for RJB, our night custodial company, later tonight, so that'll be our first contract renewal. Then in March, we'll be bringing an independent contractor agreement for Mike McElhern to do teacher evaluations. We've used Mike for many years, and he knows our staff well. The terms will be the same as for the prior year. We're starting talks with Olson Transportation for next year, and we would like to sign a new 2-year agreement with Baker Tilly for financial auditing services. We've used them since 2015. Also, our current intergovernmental agreement with Lake Forest for 67 for food service will automatically renew unless we cancel it prior to March 31st. And I'm considering some other options for food service for next year, which may require canceling the agreement or modifying the agreement. So I wanted to just give you a heads up that we may be bringing a new IGA or other contract for approval at the April board meeting or possibly the May board meeting. Also a capital project update. Given the uncertainty for next year, I'm not currently planning any major capital projects. And we have elected to continue to delay the furniture project because it basically involves furniture that's designed for small groups and intimate seating, and we would not be able to use it. So we're going to be moving ahead with some smaller projects. I don't know if people have noticed, but I've been walking some people around the buildings today and yesterday. We have an RFP out for updating our access control system, which contains all of our door entries. And that may be cost effective to do this year. We will be working on some technology infrastructure at the elementary school, including new switches and access points, And basically, we're moving forward with this to address some of the internet bandwidth usage we're using this year. We're using more internet than ever, and it's critical, so we want to make sure we have invested in that infrastructure. On the portion of this is paid with E-rate funds it's federally subsidized. We're also getting quotes to replace some of the classroom projectors elementary. And then I don't know if you're aware, we also had a water main break at the middle school during the cold temperatures, which required ripping up a segment of our front walkway at the district office entrance. And since we will need to replace this walkway, there's several other concrete repairs that needed to be made that I've sort of been holding off on, and I'd like to combine them all and try to bid the work together. So we're moving ahead with that as well. But those are the biggest plans for next year. And then we do have a list of other projects if the budget allows as we get more information.
Does insurance cover part of that repair on the water main?
I'm sorry?
Does insurance cover part of the repair on the sidewalk that was created by the water main break?
No, I don't think so. That's just an act of God.
Or old infrastructure. Okay. Anything from Tracy tonight?
Yes, one quick thing from Tracy.
Yes, so tomorrow evening, we have our second event in our Parenting Through the Pandemic series. That will be at 7 p.m. We have Audrey Grunst from Simply Be, who will be sharing information with families that mirrors some information that was shared with our staff. And so that event is called Overwhelm. I will be sharing the link to register in the chat here for anyone who's on the meeting tonight who would like to register for the event, and a school messenger will also be going out, so families can be looking for that. We currently already have more than 30 families registered, so it's going to be a great event, and so we hope to have as many families as possible there.
What does it cover? What is the subject matter?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So this is part of our social-emotional learning series. So some of the information that's provided is really for families, for parents, how to manage their own stress, self-care information, and then how to also help their students with those same things. So how to help your children with their own stress and anxiety, and some strategies and tools that they can use.
Probably pretty relevant. Good.
Yeah. Our teachers, we had great feedback from our teachers on things that they could do for themselves and strategies that they could use. And so I think that it's going to be a great thing for our parents as well.
Thanks. There is no president's report. And Dr. Leali, are you going to do anything tonight?
Yes, I have a few things for my superintendent report. Just a reminder for the board and the community that the April 13th committee of the whole meeting will now be a regular Board of Education meeting so that we can address any action items that need to take place at that meeting as well. We do have a Return to Learn Task Force meeting on Thursday, February 25th, which is this week at 9 a.m. if people want to tune in to that. Those are all live streamed and on our website. I sent a quick update on our policy manual review. We are ready to begin our process as a committee. We've met with the IASB representative, reviewed the draft changes, and we have made some recommendations that we will bring forth to the policy committee. And we are going to be meeting soon so that we can get some final edits to the IASB for our updated policy manual. There's a 5 essential survey out there. We do encourage all of our parents to participate in that. More information is being sent home weekly. I think as of today, 5%. We have had a 5% response rate. So if more parents can hop on there, that's good information for us on how we're doing as a district and in our schools. And then finally, just a reminder that this Friday is an attendance day for students. It was originally designated as our Tri-District Institute Day, but we revised our school calendar at the beginning to give us a week of institute time. So principals have sent home correspondence reminding parents of the change. I just wanted to bring it here as well. The nice news is that our teachers will still be able to participate in the keynote speaker, who will be at the Tri-District Day with District 67 and 115. Lisa DeMoore will be joining us to talk through supporting student anxiety and strategies for teachers, answering questions from our teachers as well in the 3 districts.
All right, thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to our discussions and presentations, and we start with a performance and assessment discussion. I believe that's by Dr. Leali.
That is me. Give me 1 second. I want to share my screen, but I'm just going to make sure I'm on the right slide. Okay, our strategic plan, one of our goals is for us as an administrative team to present a student assessment update every year. This usually comes in September. And so obviously our assessment situation is a little bit different this year. And so I'm presenting a mid-year update, and then we will talk again a little bit later this year when we have some more data. But on these presentations, I always like to begin with our vision and mission. We always want to provide students with quality instruction and learning opportunities, educational environments, whether they're remote or not, that inspire academic achievement, personal growth, and responsible citizenship. We do want excellence for all of our students, and we do want them to be enthusiastic about their lives every day. And so that continues to be our goal. The outcomes for this presentation is to talk a little bit about the assessment and data system that we have in place for this school year, to provide some context for the data and some action plans for the future, some things that we've done this year to address some concerns, and then also some potential action items for the future. So I want to just begin by briefly talking a little bit about the different types of assessments that we utilize here in Lake Bluff. We have a variety of assessments that indicate student and learning and growth in multiple ways. We have formative assessments, which we like to call assessments for learning, that help us to inform the course we take so that we can make sure we're achieving our outcomes. We like to think of those like leading indicators. Those are the things that we're doing before we get to the end of the line. And then we, of course, have summative assessments that assess the learning that students have done. And they're the assessments that measure whether or not we have achieved our outcomes and our goals for students. And so again, in a typical year, and we do have a lot of assessments, but we always want to look at assessment and evidence of growth and achievement as sort of a portfolio full of snapshots. Each little piece of data is one piece of data that informs the bigger picture. And so we always want to keep that in mind as we're talking about evidence of growth. When we talked with our teachers early in the year and we began planning our assessments with a teacher committee early in the summer, we determined that we had a couple of goals for assessments in this strange year and challenging year. One was to implement the least amount of assessment for the maximum amount of actionable information. In other words, we really didn't want to spend the precious time that we had with our students in the process of formal assessment, although we knew that would be important, but to get the amount of information that we needed so that we could address specific concerns or goals for each student. And then the second goal was to provide, regardless of the type of assessment that we're doing, to provide ongoing feedback and make sure that our formative assessments actually reflect the most relevant and purposeful learning goals that we could have for our students so that they would be prepared for their next phase of their educational career. So as we look at achievement and growth trends, and we're going to look at one major source of data today, which is the MAP score, the MAP data coming from last fall of 2019 to fall of 2020. We're going to talk a little bit, just really quickly, about when we talk about assessments, we want to make sure that we talk a little bit about reliability and validity. So reliability indicates the consistency of the measurement. We've been giving MAP tests here in Lake Bluff for a long time, and typically that would be a pretty reliable assessment for us. It's consistent. We have done it 3 times a year. We have it in the same learning environment. Obviously, in the fall of 2020, things were very, very different than in the fall of 19. The learning environment was different. The way students were taking the test was different. And so there's a little bit of, we have to take that with a grain of salt, that reliability piece. The validity of the assessment and the accuracy of the measurement based on what we're trying to measure again, this is fall of 19 to fall of 20, so incorporates the end of school last year in the spring. And we know that we did not get to our curricular goals in the spring last year when school shut down, and we really need to we needed to reinvent ourselves really quickly. So another thing to keep in mind as we're looking at this data. And then finally, the data that I'm about to present is, again, fall to fall math data utilized through the ECRA research base. So essentially what we're doing is filtering that data through the information that ECRA already has on our students and sort of comparing the growth that they had from 19 to 20 compared to their previous growth on those assessments. And again, we did not have any other Illinois Assessment of Readiness data or any other data to go into this calculation. And so we're really just looking at one piece of data compared to previous growth trends. The other piece that I'd like to talk about before we start to consider evidence of student growth is just having some norms around the discussion. This year we do have limited data. Typical years we'd be looking at a lot more data and points to inform our conclusions. I want to bring to everyone's attention that assessment anxiety and apathy and location and all these pieces really can influence the results of what we're looking at. We always want to consider that evidence is used to support growth of individuals and the organization as a whole, and we should be focused on learning and action plans, not on individuals and teams of individuals. And so I say that because we're in a small district and we don't have many teachers teaching certain grades, and so we want to keep that in mind when we discuss how we're doing as a district and make sure that we're focused on what we can do to improve in the future and how we can work together as an organization to make that happen. And finally, evidence of learning helps us grow and improve as an organization. It's not intended to be the sole portion of our performance evaluation for anyone in the district. And with that, we're going to take a look at kind of what we see when we look at the fall-to-fall data. And we've talked about this before, that we have seen less than typical growth from fall of 19 to fall of 20 in the area of math in particular. The red would be significantly less than typical growth for the students. The yellow would be sort of moderately less than typical. But we are seeing typical growth in the areas of reading and English language arts. And I think that there's something about the curriculum that we need to discuss there. Math is a little bit more compartmentalized, and there's new information that comes every time we do a math lesson, where reading is a bit more of a continuum of skills. Once a student hits third grade, they're reading for information and they've been introduced to a lot of the same skills that will continue to spiral and get more difficult and more rigorous as they move on in their career. So it's good to see that our students in reading and writing are still maintaining typical growth. We would love to see more than typical growth. We're seeing that with our current third graders, which is fantastic. And then just that last winter, the last full benchmark that we did see some less than typical growth in the areas of reading and math in the middle school. So something that we're going to need to address as we move forward. So again, what does this mean? Well, I want to talk a little bit about what we've done already, because math is an area that we are concerned about. We've talked about some schedule adjustments that we've made to our math instruction, so lengthening that block in the elementary school in some grades, and adding additional synchronous times in math at the middle school level. We have focused our 2 full-day Teacher Institute days for all math teachers to be provided with some support in teaching math remotely and curriculum mapping in the area of math to make sure we're focused on the most important goals. We have started providing intervention time outside of our shortened school day this year. So in that morning time, we have our interventionists and teachers working with students to provide supplemental time in math. And then we've also purchased an additional math intervention for middle school that aligns with one of our progress monitoring tools called the STAR assessment. Some action steps that we're considering for the future, we're going to have to continue to articulate around curricular adjustments that need to be made in both ELA and math. So obviously when we get back with our students in a full-time program and sort of get our spring assessment data, we're going to have to take a look at the areas of our program that need some additional attention. We are also participating in an ISB study on learning loss. The Illinois State Board of Education has worked with districts in the state to collect local assessment data and sort of help us analyze where we need to focus our attention. And so that will be another area of data analysis for us. We need to work to support social emotional needs of students that will ultimately impact their growth and achievement in academic areas. And that's something that we're going to continue to talk about in the future. Our students are definitely going to be needing a lot of additional support as we move through these challenges. And if we don't address those pieces, it will ultimately continue to impact their academic growth. We will obviously continue, as we will talk about later tonight, to focus on improving the educational delivery model that we're utilizing throughout this pandemic and the constraints that we have on us, and continue to articulate with other districts, specifically our high school district. We will be participating in the coming months in a program, math program review and adoption for algebra. Our teachers will be participating in that and looking at the materials, and then also continuing to articulate on that program. A couple other action steps under consideration. We talked about our staffing plan earlier and that it was tentative, and we came to you with minimal increases in support. But I do want to talk about the fact that the administrative team is considering some additional support in the areas of SEL, social emotional learning, and also math at the elementary level to help us shore up some of these difficulties that students are going to have. We do ask, and we know that our teachers differentiate instruction. They are providing instructional interventions the best they can. We do have support in terms of math or reading specifically at the elementary, but not in particular for math in the area of for struggling students. We do have enrichment, but we don't have additional support personnel for students who are struggling to provide those intense interventions. And so we are considering that and talking that over as a team and what that kind of support might look like as we move through the next couple of years. I do think that it would probably be a short-term piece for us, but I'm imagining that we will continue to see impacts in the areas of math and we know that that's important for our students to be able to shore up those issues that they've been having. And then finally, we will be talking in the coming weeks about community participation around social emotional learning. And the administrative team will be talking about forming an additional task force that includes a lot of our community partners as well as our students to kind of get a picture of how they're feeling and what kind of supports they need and what kind of wraparound community supports that we can provide for families and students coming out of this so that we can make sure that we address any of the challenges that our students are experiencing and will continue to experience in the future. And that is the presentation on student achievement. I will take any questions on any of that information.
Are you hearing steps that other districts are taking or thinking about that are kind of I don't know, to try and catch people up as we get back to fall? Because I'm curious if there are kind of some big things that we do.
You know, a lot of districts, as we are talking about summer opportunities for learning and what we can provide for our community in terms of bringing students in, we've already been planning for those opportunities here in Lake Bluff and partnering with Lake Forest as well so that we can provide a robust catalog of options for academic needs as well as hopefully some enrichment type things to just get kids excited about learning again. I can tell you that most districts are still in the throes of figuring out how to get students back to regular school and in the building so that we can just get connected with them and start the process of intervening where we're seeing that they're having difficulties. So I continue to articulate with our curriculum directors in the area though on that as well.
It just feels like a concern that might bear the support of more than, you know, one additional person for a period of time. I'm just curious what else other places are doing if we get some ideas about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's difficult. A lot of school districts have already had to hire additional personnel and things. So, you know, talk of next year is really preliminary. And I think we also need to see the data. You know, we need to see where our students are at. We need to provide our teachers with the professional development so they can start to support them right in the classroom. So there's lots of ways we'll be attacking it. And I'll keep the board posted on those pieces.
Great.
Anybody else have any questions for Dr. Leali? Not hearing any. I would suggest we move on to Dr. Leali's return to learn update. I'll remind anybody watching that I will offer an opportunity for public comment after. I would also like to just preface her report by acknowledging quite a large amount of communication the board and administrators have received on how important it is to our community and parents to get our kids back in school as soon as possible. We've received a number of letters directly, as well as calls and emails to various board members and Dr. Leali. The board and the administration are intensely aware of how important this issue is to the community and to parents, and are working feverishly to do the right thing for kids and to do it in a safe manner. So with that, I would turn that over to Dr. Leali.
Thank you. So yes, we are here with our Return to Learn update, and I decided to revisit one of our first presentations on our Return to Learn plan to kind of talk through where we've been and where we're going. And our goal this whole time is to be able to develop a plan that holds true to our mission and vision that we just talked about. We had some assumptions going into this process. Many of these assumptions have proven to be true for us. We have had many students who have had to be remote based on illness or close contacts with COVID. We have had to be in remote learning for a great majority of our students because of staffing issues. Our staff and students and parents, or staff, faculty, and parents community, we have asked them, and they have been honest with us about close contacts and symptoms. The guidance continues to be contradictory and has continued to change throughout the school year. And the opinions of our community continue to be varied on the best way to approach this. We have had to pivot quickly at times, and we have had to adjust our spending and budgets. We have tried to be as transparent with our decision-making and communication as possible. And I just want to reiterate that we welcome everyone and anyone to join us for our Return to Learn Task Force meetings. We still meet every 2 weeks. Some of the information that's been updated on what we know about the virus, much of it is the same. We now know that double masking helps not only the person that is not infected or spreading any virus, but also the person that's wearing the mask. We know that the virus has mutated at this point, and we have 3 known variants, one that has appeared in Lake County. In great news, our vaccination is 90 to 95% effective against COVID-19, and we're starting to see some evidence that it will hopefully be effective against these variants as well. And we know that at some point, our children will also have an opportunity to be vaccinated, which is great news. Our decision-making principles, guiding principles, have been the same since the beginning. Student and staff safety and well-being are at the top of our list. Social, emotional health and wellness for our students and staff, academic achievement and growth, equity for students regardless of where they chose to learn, continuity and consistency through quarantines and illness, and support for our community through the process. So what is being presented tonight? We are here to present a consideration for possible shifts to our plan once we reach a critical mass of teacher vaccinations. Our teachers are starting to be vaccinated, and we are looking ahead to when the majority of our teachers will be fully vaccinated, and the definition of that is 2 weeks out from the second dose of the vaccination. Most of our teachers are receiving the Moderna vaccination, so 28 days after the first dose would be the second dose. Full vaccination is reached at the end of the 2 weeks after that. We did present in the beginning of the year that we would be planning for changes throughout the year and that we would follow a process. We would try to understand the problem that we have, communicate well, plan the response, communicate the plan, solicit feedback, and we've tried to do that as we've made adjustments, and the Return to Learn Task Force has been critical for us in this process. So what is the challenge that we are experiencing at this point? We would like to get more students in school for whom remote learning is not an ideal platform at home and begin to provide more live instruction when possible. Having students 6 feet apart is an obstacle to that goal at this point. So I want to talk a little bit about why is the rule 6 feet. This is a scientifically based recommendation. Our Lake County Health Department I've been meeting with twice a week, almost the entire year. The Illinois Department of Health and the CDC all agree that 6 feet is an adequate distance to lower transmission. And it also, for our situation, minimizes close contacts and the need to quarantine multiple individuals when a positive case is in the building. And what that means is that when everyone is 6 feet apart and somebody enters the building that turns out to be COVID positive, we have not facilitated many close contacts. And so many of the people that are in the same room then do not need to quarantine for the 14 days. And that has helped us stay up and running, not only with our staff, but also for our students. The CDC has issued new guidance, and the CDC calculates their incidence rates a little bit different than the Lake County Health Department, so I've translated those. They need to be, the Lake County Health Department needs to be multiplied by 7 because they do a daily rolling incidence rate, and the CDC does a weekly. So according to the CDC calculations, Lake County and our zip code are still in substantial transmission. And at that point, according to the guidance, 6 feet is still required. If we get to a moderate transmission or a low transmission, the guidance states 6 feet to the greatest extent possible. So there's a little bit of variance between the wording in the blue and yellow versus the orange and the red. I want to acknowledge that not everyone agrees that 6 feet is necessary. Most U.S. public health agencies agree that 6 feet is beneficial for limiting community spread. However, when weighing the risks of keeping students out of school, there are some agencies who have disagreed and said that 6 feet isn't necessarily what's going to or what should be keeping students out of school, mainly the World Health Organization and the American Academy of Pediatrics. So I want to talk a little bit about what would happen if we decided to reduce the distancing requirements in Lake Bluff. Because many have talked about the fact that it is just guidance. You know, the health departments do offer us guidance for running schools safely. It is not law. And if we were to change or not adhere to some portions of the guidance, we would not necessarily be shut down. But I do want to talk through what the implications are for that. One is that first and foremost, we would be able to increase the number of students that we have in our schools based on our facilities. But there also would be more close contacts by definition facilitated within our schools, which would mean more quarantines and more use of our remote learning platform when positive cases are in the building. We have really, we've received a lot of positive feedback from parents who have had to move to a remote platform for whatever reason, whether it's traveling, quarantine, close contacts, or illness. Parents have felt really confident that when they have to be at home, that remote platform is the same for their child and there's a limited amount of disruption. If we were to move down to the greatest extent possible or down to say 3 to 5 feet, and a student were to be in the building and determined to be positive or even having a symptom, the students are directly seated around that child or mixing with that child for more than 15 minutes would be considered close contacts and would need to quarantine at home for the 14 days. There still is no way for a student to test out of close contact quarantine. That is a 14-day quarantine, regardless of a negative test. And really quickly, what challenges would still exist if we reduced the distancing? Well, one, we would have changed the landscape of what our remote learning or our return to learn plan is. And we may have parents who are no longer comfortable having students in school knowing that we are not keeping the 6 feet distance. We will still need a remote option for all students, and it should be high quality. The Illinois State Board of Education has mandated that we offer that opportunity. I would imagine that probably will keep going until students are able to be vaccinated. And we want that to be a seamless transition between in school and out of school. Because there are many situations in which families have had to transfer to that remote off-campus platform. There will be additional transportation challenges. As you know, we've limited the number of students on our buses to 24. That is not, it's about half of what the guidance states we could have on the bus. we could have 50, which would be about 2 children per seat. But that certainly would be creating a lot of close contacts, and we have had some quarantines based on close contacts on the bus, just with 24 students on a bus. So either further limiting that physical distancing on the bus or adding buses would be a challenge for us to bring back more students. If we were to bring back more students, there is the potential for some teacher changes, which we know is disruptive to people. When we brought kids back on January 19th, we knew that that was a possibility and we tried to minimize it, but there is potential for that if we decided to go that way. If we do wind up having more students or illness in the school, there is certainly potential for larger scale closures again if the health department finds that there's community spread or anything happening in our buildings. And we don't know the impact of the variants yet in Lake County. What are the risks of maintaining the 6 feet? Remote is really difficult for some of our students and families at home, and as we heard tonight in the public comment, being on the computer in school is also difficult for some students. It is also limiting in terms of the organization and delivery of instruction. I mean, when we're trying to keep people 6 feet apart, it limits our ability to do small group instruction, which is best practice in the way that we've been doing things for quite some time here in Lake Bluff. If we do not adhere to the guidance of the Lake County Health Department, what is the risk to our district aside from the health risks? Our goal has always been to keep everyone safe and healthy in our environment. But the truth is we have never been insured for transmission of communicable diseases. However, we have paid very, very close attention to make every effort up until this point to mitigate risk by adhering to almost all the guidance and recommendations by the health department. The only 2 pieces that we have not followed have been large-scale surveillance testing. And when the Lake County Health Department did issue a recommendation to move to virtual, we stayed open for a few extra weeks because we were monitoring our own zip code level data, and we kept our students here for a little bit longer. This piece, if we were to choose to adjust the guidance from 6 feet non-negotiable to greatest extent possible or down to 3 to 5 feet, that would be a substantial deviation from the guidance that we've received from our local health department. And speaking with our legal consultants, they're very firm on the fact that your local health department is the most important health department for you to be listening to, as it's the one that represents your local community. So what are we considering? The administrative team would like to begin planning to distance students to the greatest extent possible as opposed to the non-negotiable 6 feet and invite more students back to learning with us after spring break, at which point we should be fully staffed in our buildings as we're still struggling with finding teachers, assistants and things, but we think we'll be there. And the majority of our teachers who want to be vaccinated will have the opportunity to be fully vaccinated and take advantage of that. I think it's important here for me to mention that our teachers union has been extremely flexible and adaptable and have been in our building since September 1st. That is not the case for every district in Lake County, and they have been patient as they have been waiting for the vaccinations to become available through the 2 educator pods in Lake County. And so I want to work closely with our union because I want to make sure they feel safe and comfortable to be back in the building with less distancing should we decide to go that way. I do feel strongly, and I have heard feedback from some parents who are at home and who have chosen to keep their children home all year, that we promised remote learning would be the foundational learning platform for this school year. And many of the parents who chose to keep their children home did so because they felt it would be equitable for their child. And I do feel strongly that even if we bring more students back in the building, if we have students that have to be out due to quarantine or illness, that we would continue to utilize the ability to connect those students at home and at school through that online platform. So what might it look like? More students in person. If we happen to have a class where all the students are there that day, we would not have to use the online learning platform and we would instruct live. But if students have to be out due to quarantine and long-term effects, then we would continue to use that Zoom online platform. At middle school, we would have more students in person. Teachers would be in the same room with their students delivering instruction as opposed to over Zoom, although they might still use the Zoom platform in the room if they have students that have to be home. And we continue to ask that non-essential travel be limited for our families. We do have a lot of families that have taken advantage of the remote platform for travel. And while we understand that this is a nice flexibility that we're offering this year, it is definitely difficult for our teachers to implement a hybrid model and have some students at home and some students at school. So if we were to move to a model where we're asking and we are accommodating any student who wants to be there, our goal would be to have all of those students in person every day, unless they are unable to due to COVID restrictions. We have been giving our community a choice to learn at home or learn in school since September 1st. We are considering removing the hybrid option if we were to move to a third phase or a third reorganization. And that is because it is difficult for students to only be in school a couple days a week. They're transporting a lot of materials back and forth. It's hard to make sure they have what they need. And if we build a third phase of a plan, we want to have the opportunity for kids to be with us as much as possible. We know that this is a difficult decision for parents. I recognize that some parents are really interested in having that live instruction happening at school and limiting the Zoom. I also recognize that many of our remote families have made a commitment so that other families could be in person, and that's something that we need to honor, in my opinion. We will continue to ask for parent certification of wellness every day, and we will continue to use all other mitigating factors and strategies that we've been using all year, especially in terms of isolation, sending students home with symptoms, masking, and cleaning protocols. So I'm opening it up for board discussion on any thoughts on the consideration that we have to start planning for that. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you for covering in so much detail, Dr. Leali. It's so much to digest. I'm feeling a little overwhelmed. One of the things I keep circling back to in my mind when I consider my responsibilities to Lake Bluff taxpayers and families and parents and students is our liability and exposure from a legal point of view. And we've had guidance in the past from our lawyers that have said something to the effect of, while the guidance from the Lake County Department of Health is not law, we should treat it as such. And when you ask our lawyers about reducing the 6-foot distancing, how do they respond?
They're not super comfortable with it. Their job is to make sure they look out for us as an organization and limit liability. And so obviously if our local health department is telling us 6 feet is non-negotiable, they're going to ask us to do that as much as we possibly feel that we can. And that's the guidance they can offer. It is not law, but if we were to be challenged on whether or not we did everything that we could possibly do to keep everyone safe, that would be a willful decision where we would be going against the guidance of the local health department. And that would be definitely indicating intent to not follow guidance for that one piece.
I'd be interested in knowing, and thank you for laying that out the way you did. I thought that was really great to kind of walk through the journey that we've already been on and sort of the pros and cons of each. I would wonder, as someone who's interested in data and kind of what people want, because we don't hear from everybody who and those people have opinions too. I'd be interested to know, like, if we were to make a shift, and do another sort of disruptive change, would we be surveying somehow the families that are still there to say, are you comfortable with this? Would we be surveying the families at home saying, given the new, if there's a new structure, given the new structure, or, would you be comfortable with this? And so everybody has, that opportunity to reelect. I guess that's one thing I would keep in mind. And also I appreciate what you said about making sure that things remain equitable, because I think that is one of the reasons that people committed to staying home all year.
Yeah, so I appreciate that question, and yes, in our planning, we would have to survey our families again. We would try to be as transparent with what it would look like as possible, but this is the same conundrum we've been in since the beginning. You just don't know the specifics until you know how many people are interested, and then that sort of adjusts, based on how many people actually show interest. So giving the community a choice creates a lot more challenges than just putting your program out there and saying, this is what we're doing. But we've committed to doing that. We really feel it's important that we give parents choice in this process. We know that this is difficult. We know that parent and family circumstances are changing. We know that for some of our families, remote at home has been very successful. And I can tell you that I've had a few parents reach out to me directly, please don't change anything because it's working and we're almost at the end of the year and we said we would do this and please leave it the way it is. We also have a group of parents that Mark was referring to earlier that is feeling like what we're doing in school is not working for their child and it could be more effective by removing that remote component. And so we also, I'm sure, have groups in the other camps where remote at home is not working and what's happening in school is working. So as we talked about, we knew that community opinions on this and the results that we would have from offering these options would be varied based on student and family structure and so many variables. So I don't believe that we are going to have a solution that is going to fit every family, nor do I think we ever really have been able to do that given the constraints of the school year and the challenges that we faced. But we do feel it's important in our community with the resources that we have that we try to continue to do better and improve when we think that we can. And again, we're working closely with our teachers union on having that discussion around what we might be able to do when the majority of our teachers are vaccinated. And if we can make any adjustments, those would be the ones that we would be considering.
I'm curious, do the local guidelines differentiate between adults and children when they set the 6 feet guidance?
So no, at this point they don't, and they don't really even take into account vaccinations because we don't know still. It doesn't mean that we know, we just don't know if a vaccinated individual can continue to transmit the virus to others. So 6 feet is non-negotiable at this point. Now, I meet again with the health department tomorrow morning. You never know. We might be receiving an update. But at this point, it's non-negotiable 6 feet between everyone. There is some research that indicates that children under 10 are less at risk, but that hasn't really influenced the guidance in any way coming from Lake County. And our Lake County Health Department will always be more conservative than the Illinois Department of Health. We would never be any less conservative.
Right, right. When you say non-negotiable, what do you mean by that? Because I thought it was a guidance, not an absolute
I know.
standard.
So it's a really great question, and I think it's the thing that we've all been grappling with. The health department is putting out guidelines that they feel are important for keeping everyone safe. In their mind, it's not 6 feet to the greatest extent possible. It's keep people apart 6 feet. However, they also acknowledge that there's no policing of that. And if they come into the school or if we have a case or we have a classroom where we're seeing multiple cases in that classroom, they will come and do what they've done with us in the past at the beginning of the year, consult with us on the case, talk to us about our learning environment, look at the way we have our furniture and desks set up. They'll walk us through our schedules. They'll talk about close contacts and mask breaks and who's been with who. And they'll determine not only who needs to quarantine, but whether or not we need to make any adjustments to make sure that there's no spreading happening in our school. So when I say non-negotiable, I mean they would like to have everyone 6 feet apart, mainly because if you're 6 feet apart and you can prove that you've been 6 feet apart for the most part, when there's somebody who's been in the building, you're not doing a ton of contact tracing and you're not excluding people from school just based on the fact that they've been within 6 feet for more than 15 minutes. And that definition of close contact has never changed.
So I think the speaker, Ms. Bennett, at the beginning asked the question. I thought it was an interesting one. I mean, we talk about 6 feet. If we went to 5 feet, would we suddenly be able to have a whole large number of additional kids in the school, or are we talking we really have to go to 3 or 2 to make a material difference in attendance?
I don't think that we would need to be under 3. I think between 3 and 5, we would be able to accommodate almost everyone that wanted to come back. I mean, we are lucky and fortunate here in Lake Bluff that we don't have enormous class sizes, and our facilities are generous, so we can work with the facility space that we have and take a look at, utilizing those different spaces and potentially, if we need to, hiring additional adults. But we're not looking at less than 3 feet. We would be looking at between 3 and 6, but that's where we're going with the part of, we'd love to just continue to socially distance to the greatest extent possible given the circumstances. So if we have a grade where not a lot of people want to come back in, we might be able to maintain that 6 feet. But if we do have a grade where we have many, many more children who want to be with us, we might not be able to reach that 6 feet, and that's where that flexibility would come in.
So
sort of not a guaranteed 6 feet, if that makes sense.
given the recent evidence that the vaccine is quite effective after the second shot, and given the fact that you suggest going to a different phase after spring break, it's quite feasible by that time, that's another, 6 weeks away, that the transmission rates will be down far enough where you can be 3 to 5 feet apart. And the teachers, as important as the kids, will also feel safe having had their vaccinations. That's what you're aiming for, correct?
That's what we're hoping. We keep getting updates on these variants. Florida and California are not in a great spot right now. That's why we really keep hearing about international travel. The health department talks to us a lot about how the COVID came to us in the first place through international travel, and that's what they're seeing with these variants as well. So if we can limit that international travel back and forth and kind of keep the numbers where they are now or keeping them less, then yes, you're right. By spring break, we might be in a spot where we feel like even the guidance would suggest we could go to the greatest extent possible. And I just want to also let the board know that this is not a new conversation for our administrative team. When we heard the CDC was releasing new guidance, we started planning a month ago or so for what would happen if they came out saying that 3 to 6 feet was okay, because there was a lot of rumor and there was a lot of discussion about what we might see. It was a little different than we thought, but our teams have been figuring out ways that we might be able to do this for some time.
I just want to say that, yes, I'm a board member, but I'm also a parent in this district. And as a parent in this district, I really appreciate all of the thought and process and work that you and your team have put into all of these phases. And I know the idea of taking on a third phase this school year and, reworking this seems like a lot, but I appreciate that you guys are committed to doing what's best for the students, trying to keep it equitable, but then also adjusting as the guidance, as the things change to get as many people into school as you can. So thank you.
I'd also like to add, I have grandchildren who are in school in South Carolina, and it's been utter chaos the way they've handled it down there. The kids are in school, they're out of school, they've had a significant number of cases in school, teachers have been affected, and it seems that no one's really in charge. The board's under all kinds of pressure from parents to do one thing. They listen to what they say one day, and the next day there are another set of parents that come back and want something else, and it's been utter chaos. So the fact that you've handled it the way you have, and quite successfully from what I've heard from a number of parents, including my neighbors who have two kids in school, very happy with the remote situation. I commend you for your effort, and I know we all have an interest in getting kids back to school. Let's put that on the table. Everybody wants kids back in school. It's awful. My grandchildren are suffering terribly by not being in school. So that's something we can all agree to. We have to be considerate not only of our kids, but also of our teachers. I mean, they're in a situation that's probably more vulnerable than the children are, given the statistics. And you've done all of this under a consistent set of guidelines and rules. Those things haven't really changed. You haven't wobbled from one place to the other as they have in South Carolina. So I think the message you've put in place has been successful, and I would recommend you continue on that path.
Lisa, I have a question. Just to paint a picture for anybody watching and paying attention and who has an interest in getting more kids in school. If moving in the direction you've outlined towards spring break and trying to to perhaps consider reducing that distance between kids. At any point in this school year, if we got more kids back in the classroom, would the classroom look like it did last year, pre-pandemic? Would education look the same as it did before the pandemic?
I don't see education looking exactly like it did pre-pandemic for quite some time. Until children have access to the vaccination, I see us still having to offer a remote piece. I think masking is going to be with us well into next year. I think cohorting and contact tracing is still going to be part of the guidance because it is a logistical obstacle to continually track and manage where students are at all times, just in case there's a positive case that happens to be in our buildings. That's our obligation. We need to be able to make sure that we know where everyone is at all times, but that anyone who's been inside an elementary or middle school knows that's not how we normally run. And we certainly don't run that way here in Lake Bluff. So small group instruction, students collaborating and talking with each other, eating lunch together, having social time the way that they have. I don't see that coming back for a little while, but we certainly can continue to get better, and we certainly can continue to invite more students together so that they can be in the same room, they can have discussions even if they're a little bit apart from each other. It is a good place for our kids to be, and I appreciate the message that we have created a very safe place. I'm proud of that. I'm proud of our team for maintaining the guidance that we have. We've been very strict and vigilant with it, not only for our students, but also for our staff members and for our community members. That's our obligation. I think that we all feel like we're optimistic that the numbers are going to continue to go down. We're hopeful that we don't see these variants pop up the way they're popping up in other parts of the country, but I have not heard much about the rest of this calendar year looking a whole lot different than we've been experiencing. But like I said, we can continue to get better, and certainly having our adults protected is a big piece of that for us.
And I just want to, I know you said this a couple times already, Dr. Leali, but I want to encourage anybody who's watching or who sent letters this week or who talked to board members this week or whatever to attend the Return to Learn meetings, because from the very beginning, and it was a harder way to do it, but you and the admin team, worked really hard to keep those transparent and kind of a two-way process. It's not like you can participate in those meetings if you just are visiting, So I think I would really encourage you to come listen and listen to how the process has worked, listen to how the discussion works, because I think it will help to understand all the pieces. I know many people watch them after the fact, but the fact that you've kept those going, it's every 2 weeks. There's one this Thursday at 9 a.m. I really think that participating in those will help understand how the decision-making process goes, and also will give you a voice, that you feel like maybe you haven't had. But I do think that from the very beginning, you've had that transparent process, which has been a huge part of the success that I think our district's had to date. So just a little encouragement to come to that if you have not already.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on this Return to Learn conversation from the board? So
There was a
not
question
seeing any
about
further from the board.
timeline. Mark, I just want to say real quickly, there was a question about timeline. Tonight was not a formal recommendation. I'm hopeful that we can come in March with a more formal recommendation on what we'd like to do to proceed as we work with our teachers. So board members, if there's any concerns that you want to share after this meeting as we consider this, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Okay, thanks. I would also remind the viewing audience that if they had a question or a comment, they could raise it now, and we can allow that participation if you raise your hand on the Zoom. If not, we'll move on to the next item. So I'm going to look for raised hands on the attendees list. I am not seeing any. So I think we will move on. And thank you so much for all that information, Dr. Leali. So now we move on to a business contract updates, and Mr. Khan will take us through that.
is for the RJB contract. We have our night custodial contract is up for renewal. Our contract is, it's a 5-year contract it's actually a 1-year contract with the option for the board to renew for 4 successive years. The increase is predetermined in the contract by CPI. And RJB has done an outstanding job of keeping our buildings safe and clean this year. And we would love to renew the contract with them. So we're recommending that the board approve an extension. The increase would be 1.4% because that was the increase in the CPI this last December.
Any questions for Mr. Khan? Not hearing any. We can move on to our action items. Our first action item is for the 2021-2022 school district calendar. As discussed at the February 9th Committee of the Whole meeting, the board is asked to approve the 2021-2022 school district calendar. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns? Or anybody need any more information about that calendar update? Not hearing any. May I have a motion to approve the 2021-2022 school district calendar as presented by the administration?
So moved. Second.
Second, please.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
John Marsden?
Yes.
Charlo, yes. Gotchall?
Yes.
Duran?
Yes.
Hill?
Yes.
Barry?
Yes. Motion's approved. Item B is the 2021-2022 board meeting calendar. Also, as discussed at the February 9th Committee of the Whole meeting, the board is asked to approve the 21-22 board meeting calendar. Any questions, comments, or concerns on that?
Whatever.
Not hearing any. May I please have a motion to approve the 2021-2022 board meeting calendar as presented by the administration?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Charlo, yes. Gotchall?
Yes.
Duran?
Yes.
Hill?
Yes.
Barry?
Yes.
Marsden?
Yes.
Item C is the TRS Supplemental Savings Plan Adoption Resolution. This is what I mentioned earlier, is another unfunded mandate. Jay will talk to us about this savings plan. A law was passed requiring TRS to have a defined contribution savings component, and we are mandated to participate in it. So Jay, if you could give us the highlights, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. So as we've seen in the private sector, TRS is adding a defined contribution, or I think they're really transitioning the pension plan to be more of a defined contribution model as part of pension reform. This particular law was a stepping stone to do that, but it was also an intention to give teachers and other licensed staff members, particularly those in Tier 2, an additional savings option for retirement. The Tier 2 pension right now is provides less of a benefit than the Tier 1 option, and so additional savings is encouraged for members, particularly members in Tier 2. However, it's a good practice for anyone retiring with a pension. So the district itself offers 2 options for teachers and other staff members. We have a 403B option and a 457B option, and those are IRS codes. They're savings plans they're very similar to a 401k, which you might be familiar with from the private sector. It allows people to put aside income pre-tax or do a Roth post-tax and save additionally for retirement. And they can choose the savings vehicle that they put it in. TRS is adding this in addition to their defined benefit pension. So right now, a deduction is taken out of a licensed staff member's pay, and it is remitted to TRS to fund the defined pension benefit. This would be an optional plan for any TRS participant. They have the option to, instead of contributing to a district 403B or 457, they can elect to contribute to the TRS 457. It's a 457 plan, which has some benefits over 403B, in that when there's not a lot of penalties when teachers can access that money earlier when they're 59 and a half, or if they leave the teaching profession and not have to wait until full retirement age. But this is, again, just an additional savings vehicle for teachers. It is optional for teachers to participate. There is no requirement that districts fund or contribute to this plan, and it's really no incremental cost to districts. This is merely just the option for teachers to elect to participate. The district would withhold their contributions from their paycheck and remit it to TRS, and it would be invested in the supplemental savings plan, which is going to be managed by Voya Financial, and TRS and or the participants would be paying all of the costs associated with those investments. So.
But it is mandated, right? We have to participate.
I think the law that was passed requires TRS to offer it, and I think the original guidance from TRS said that it was mandatory for boards to pass this resolution. I believe they've received some pushback and may have softened their language, but this is something that I don't see really a downside in providing. In approving, it's just providing people an additional savings retirement vehicle, and it doesn't really cost the district anything. My editorial comment is just that, you know, there were proposals previously for a tier 3 in TRS, which would combine a lower benefit with, and even a lower deduction, and then some mandated district contribution towards a defined contribution plan. So I believe this is sort of the first step in setting up all the systems to make that, something like that, achievable. The TRS is one of the poorest funded pensions in the country, and you know, similar to what the automakers did in the past, they're looking for ways to manage their unfunded liability. So rather than to continue to increase it, they want to try to shift some of that pension cost onto people, and have it basically to withhold, to remove the temptation from legislators to not fund the pension. If it's defined contribution, people are putting the money in, it gets invested, and it's off limits. The defined pension benefit is such that districts contribute to it, and then the state has a big contribution they need to make. And the problem, or the reason we have this problem, is because they haven't been paying their funds into the defined benefit pension. So that's sort of my personal editorial comment. Nobody has, you know, that's not part of this plan, but they're setting up this savings plan to add a defined contribution benefit. And I think it's smart because, I mean, personally, I also invest in a 403B to supplement my pension savings. And I know there's been a push at districts to try to get teachers to do more of that. And this just provides a really easy option and an additional investment opportunity for people. So you can't save too much for retirement, and I think that it would be prudent for the board to adopt this additional option for people.
Okay.
Thanks, Jay. That's helpful. Did I understand you to say that the district already has something like this, and now there's going to be another option through TRS, and they're mutually exclusive?
Correct. The district has been offering 403B and 457 options for staff members for a long time, since well before I came to the district, and we have limited participation. We actually, in our last contract, negotiated a district match to a 403B for tier 2 people, where if a teacher contributes a certain amount, the board would match up to $25 per paycheck towards their 403B or 403B. So it's something we've been doing. We've recognized the need to supplement retirement savings and not rely on a pension, particularly if the way the pension is calculated, it is based on your highest years of earnings. So if you stay in the profession for your career, you tend to earn a very good pension, but if you left the, teaching profession mid-career where your earnings were not as high, you would, and you hadn't been supplementing your retirement savings, you would maybe not be the best place for retirement. So this gives people options. I think, people change careers more now these days than they have in the past, and just, good retirement planning. People always recommend that you save as much as you can, as early as you can, to benefit from compounding and those kinds of things. So we have provided one, and this is, again, just another option through TRS.
And not costly to the district, you said.
There's no cost to the district, and there's no requirement that the district contribute any contributions.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions for Mr. Khan? Not hearing any. May I have a motion to approve the TRS Supplemental Savings Plan resolution as presented by the administration?
So moved.
Anybody have a
Second.
roll call, please?
Gotchall,
Yes.
Duran,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Marsden,
Yes.
Charlo, yes.
All right, the motion is approved. Item D, the RJB contract renewal, the second amendment. That Mr. Khan already provided us an update on what that's all about. Is there any further questions or comments or concerns on that? Not hearing any. May I have a motion to approve the RJB contract renewal, second amendment, as presented by the administration?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Duran,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Marsden,
Yes.
Charlo, yes. Gotchall,
Yes.
All right, the motion is approved. Item E is the personnel report, and this month's personnel report includes a retirement. Sally Burden, a PT teacher at the elementary school effective June 9th of 21, retiring. A non-licensed new hire, Brett Montalbano, as a teaching assistant at the elementary school effective February 23rd, replacing Rana Spiewak at $15 an hour. Also includes Jolynn Lindquist, a teaching assistant at the elementary school effective February 3rd, per the staffing plan approved on November 10th at $15 an hour. Under open positions and carryover, we have Kristen Armstrong, a teaching assistant at the middle school effective September 30th. For family reasons, we have Marcella Hubner, a teaching assistant at the elementary school on December 18th. And Stephanie Conboy at the school secretary at the elementary school effective January 15th. Any questions, comments, or concerns or discussion about any of that? May I have a motion to approve the personnel report for February 23rd, 2021 as presented by the administration?
So moved.
So moved.
Second, please.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Duran,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Marsden,
Yes.
Charlo, yes. Gotchall,
Yes.
it's everybody.
That's the motion is approved. Thank you. The final item in our action item is our consent agenda. This month's consent agenda includes the open session meeting minutes, which include the January 26, 2021 regular Board of Ed meeting minutes, the February 9th, 2021 Committee of the Whole meeting minutes. It also includes the Treasurer's report, the Impress report, the Bills report, the P card report, and as well as the resolution to transfer funds from contingency, which is for COVID spending. Would anybody on the board like any of those pulled out for further discussion and not to be in the consent agenda? Not hearing any. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda for February 23rd, 2021 as presented by the administration?
So moved.
Second,
Roll call vote, please.
Hill,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Marzen,
yes.
Charlo, yes, Gotcha,
Yes.
Duran.
Yes.
The motion is approved. That is it for our action items. Item 10 is a FOIA request. We did receive one FOIA request. It's in the board packet. It's pretty routine, nothing too exciting, if anybody's interested in it. I would offer the opportunity from anybody in the audience, if they have a final comment or question, to raise your hand in Zoom, and we can let you address the board now. Not seeing any hands go up, I would ask the board if there's anybody who has a final question or comment or something they'd like to say. Before we ask for an adjournment, I would remind the board that we do need to go briefly into closed session afterwards. So Shelley, after we adjourn, if you could shut everything down so it's just board members left and Jay on this screen, if that's okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you'll just,
I think we just go into closed and you don't adjourn till after. You have to come out of closed to adjourn.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so I'm going to need, all right, and we'll do it that way. So we'll make sure we all of our attendees are closed out, and I'm going to ask for a motion to go into closed session to discuss the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony or complaint lodged against an employee of the public body or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity. May I have a motion to that effect, please?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Barry,
Yes.
Marzen,
Yes.
Charlo, yes, Gotcha,
Yes.
Duran.
I think Andy had to leave. He sent me a text.
Oh gee, okay. I'm not looking at the screen. Ann Hill.
Ann, you still here? Did we lose Ann too?
Okay.
Oh, she's here. We can't hear
Yep.
you.
I saw her say yes. We're good.
Thumbs up is good. All right, so we are going to go into closed session, and the only person who needs to be here is Jay, but Lisa's saying, hold on.
just want to make sure we can get YouTube. Can we shut that down without?
Everything.
No. We're going to have to end this meeting, and we're going to have to end this meeting. So I'm going to send you a new link. I'm going to send it in your email right now.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
Be sure to send it to my personal one.